Hey, I'm Drew, and this is the Drew Petersen Podcast, home to one chairlift ride, ski pole microphone, and real story at a time. This chairlift chat is with Jason Blevins, reporter and co-founder of the Colorado Sun. Jason largely established the beat as a longtime journalist of the ski industry and of mountain living. It was really fun to switch roles and get to interview him this time around. Before we drop in, a quick note from this episode's sponsor. You know when you find that ski and everything's dialed and you think to yourself, nothing about this needs changing? Well, that was the QST line from Salomon. But guess what? The QST line got a full redesign this year. No, not because anything needed changing, but because Salomon knew that they could make it even better. They knew that they could make it more playful, more versatile, and more consistent across the board. Personally, I've been skiing the QST 106 for the past 8 years, ever since I joined Salomon. It's been one of my favorite skis, and this redesign made it even better. So if you're thinking about some new skis, click the link in the show notes, the newsletter, or on my website. I know it's an extra step, but clicking that link helps to support me, and it proves the value of this podcast to Salomon, and that makes it so that I can keep doing this whole thing. All right, let's raise the bar, keep your tips up, and drop in. All right, Jason Blevins.
Yeah.
You have interviewed me 1,000,001 times.
Yes.
And now I finally get to interview you.
How lucky am I?
You've been writing daily newspaper stories about skiing, about the communities, about the towns, about the mountains for 30 years.
30 years. Man, do I feel old.
And it'd be real easy for me to just give you credit as a fantastic journalist, which you are. But there's something extra in your reporting that has established yourself in a league all your own. Why do you put so much care and passion into what you do?
I love my place. I love the western slope of Colorado. I love the communities. I love the people. I love people that like to ski. I get to hang out with people like Drew Petersen. I get to go, travel around one of the most beautiful corners of our planet and connect with people and share, hold up a window so that everyone could see that same beauty, just mitigated beauty out here. And it's not just the mountains and the beautiful forests and the wonderful rivers and the incredible mountains. It's the people that make up these communities and how they work so passionately and they feel so deeply connected to their place. And I am simply reflecting that passion and really wanting to show what it is about a community that makes Colorado and really the West such a wonderful, beautiful, awesome place to live.
Well, I tell you what, the passion comes through in your voice. And I think that if any of us are so lucky to be as passionate as you are 30 years into doing something, then life's pretty grand. I want to ask you, a lot of what you've interviewed me about is mental health, specifically in mountain communities. And again, could just be because you're a good journalist. But I want to ask you and give you the opportunity to share, why do you care? And why is that an aspect of mountain living that you use your role to shine some light on?
It's a really good question. And, we live in these stunning, spectacular, extraordinary environments. And we are seeing people when they get here, when they've been here a long time, their exterior environment doesn't reflect their interior, right? And they wonder, and then they start to feel worse and worse. And we're starting to see more and more. And this is a critical issue in a lot of these mountain towns. People can't understand why they are feeling human in an entirely spectacular place. Like these things are way bigger than us, right? And they're way more beautiful than us. And everywhere we look, it's just stunning. And why can't we always feel that beauty in us? And that's just being human. It rarely is our emotions immediately connected to our outside environment. So I try to just do whatever I can to write a story, whether it's a simple story like a program at Winter Park Ski Area or your, feel it all movie, to where we should just be feeling it all. And you go out there and you share with everyone your interior darkness, and you're like, it's entirely okay to feel that darkness and not feel as rosy and sunny as your environment outside. And that's part of the human experience. And we all just need to acknowledge it. And if we can all acknowledge it, that it exists and that it's there and that we will get through it and you will be on the other side of it, then we can all be supporting of each other and help each other get through those dark times. And dark times it's part of the human life. Like, it's the way that it is. And there's nothing wrong with it. And if we all can just take a look at it, admit that it's there, and say, hey, I'm not feeling so good. And then you could call me up, I'll call you up, and we'll have a good chat, and we'll try to cheer each other up, and we'll go whatever, for a bike ride, go for a ski, go for a hike. And hopefully we can convey to each other that, hey, this is a temporary condition in a permanently beautiful place, and things will come around. The sun will rise again, and darkness will fade, and we'll be back to where we are. And if I can play the tiniest role in helping people understand that you're not unusual, you don't have to feel terrible for feeling bad in a beautiful place. We need to acknowledge that all things that life is a roller coaster, and there's no light without darkness. There's no darkness without light. And whatever we could do to acknowledge that and help each other through, I'd love to play a role, whatever tiny little role I can, in helping to improve the mental health capacity in some of these towns.
Damn well said.
I try.
Per usual. I feel very similar.
Yeah.
That's why I do what I do.
Of course.
I wasn't sure exactly how I could use my role as a pro skier, but found my way. And you certainly find your way on a whole host of other topics. So I want to shift to, maybe it's not away from mental health, but I want to ask you in a broader sense, what topic or what issue, what challenge of life, what joy of life, maybe it's on the Western Slope or just in mountain communities at large, are we not talking about enough at this moment, and do you think is going to be an instrumental part in the conversation moving forward?
Yeah, we have to find a better balance in some of these mountain town economies. And you've heard me say this before, but we open up our newspapers every day in these mountain towns, and the back pages of these color ads, and each one of those ads say, you don't belong here. You don't belong here. At least that's what they tell me. Like, I don't understand how someone could afford a house that's more money than I will make, and my children will make, and their children will make in our lifetimes. And that haves and haves nots, the disparity that is so prevalent and so obvious in our communities is really splitting it. But it doesn't have to be split. We can find a way to patch that and bridge that and recognize the value that those people that spend those ungodly amounts of money on their homes, they actually can contribute. They can be wonderful members of your community. And we need to find a way to not feel that split and not feel that gap and not let it be a chasm. We make it a chasm, and it doesn't have to be. And I think we can find a way to embrace why everyone is here, whether or not they're living in that big old mansion or a apartment complex. We all have really shared values for the respect for this place and the beauty. And I think it's possible to find a way to bring these different people together, recognize the values that we share and the respect for this place and the beauty of the Western Slope of Colorado, and find ways to come together to make our place even better without the contention and some of the conflict that is just inherent. And we see it around the nation. This like the haves and have-nots. The billionaires are getting more billionaire, and the poors are getting more poors. And we can sit there and focus on that and yell at each other, or we can find our common ground. And that's something that I try to do with a lot of my stories, is just be like, hey, there's a lot of similarities. We are really all humans, and we all have the same emotional, sort of battles and everything. So why don't we just celebrate our commonality and see if we can't bring that to the western slope of Colorado, and we could be a model for everybody around the world on how we could all get along.
I love that.
It's a little Pollyanna, but it's still, I think it's doable.
And it speaks to how mountain living can also be a microcosm or a little case study in a broader sense. There was an ad on the back of the Aspen Times for a house for $52.5 million that I was scoping out. So maybe the podcast will really take off.
Just all you need is another 52.5 million podcasts, and you'll get there.
I tell you what, though, I think like the common ground of shared values is so important.
It really is.
And one of the things that I do when I'm not necessarily seeing or feeling those shared values is I start with everybody here cares.
They do. And that's part of the thing, is that, and they have that respect for this place just like you do, just like we all do.
I want to riff on this idea of mountain communities being a microcosm of society at large.
Yeah.
In many ways, we're also a canary in the coal mine. When it comes to climate change, we're seeing the effects early on, to housing crisis, housing supply shortage, and then with mental health and suicide rates in the Rocky Mountain West.
Sure.
How do you make sense of that as a reporter in any of those realms or another, of, being able to tell these stories in a way that doesn't only affect and tell the story of, or hopefully help, mountain communities, but also society in a broader sense?
Yeah, we are the stewards of not just these public lands that we get to access and take care of, but we're also stewards of, sort of a lasting frontier sort of idea that we are exploring new places, and we are being able to set an example and a model and a pace for what's, how rural America can help to influence all our crazy, very urban centric sort of government and policies and growth and all these things. And I feel like people aspire to the Colorado mountains, right? They look at them and they say, oh my gosh, it's so beautiful. Even if you don't get up here, they know that they're there. Just knowing that they're there makes them feel better. And how we define ourselves and our culture and our life, and how we embrace, diverse demographics and a diverse population, diverse economies, and how we can grow and thrive in these constricted mountain valleys where the haves have a lot and the have-nots are still grinding it out. I think we can really hold a mirror up to how rural America can be an example, and not just ostracized and left out, and the guardians of our water and the guardians of you give all of rural America should give us all the oil and gas and give us all the water and take care of our wolves and take care of our wildlife. The responsibility is great out here. We have a lot to do to take care of the breadbasket of America, and grow food and all the things that we need to do to support our country. And one of those things is showing how we don't need to delve and devolve into political bickering and fighting. We tend to have a lot of ability to listen to each other in these small towns. And that's something that we're hoping that we can share with the rest of the world, maybe at least the rest of our urban counterparts, that we do have a lot to offer, and don't just dismiss us as a bunch of hillbilly rubes or anything like that, and listen to us and let us help you, and we can really come together as a unified state, Coloradans, not Front Rangers and West Slopers, but everybody together on the same page, knowing that we have water issues that we have to define. We have economic, disparity that we have to, help to bridge. We have wildlife and public lands and all the things that we need to steward and take care of in these rural parts of the country. And we need everyone's help. It starts with just listening. And I think that's something that we do really well in these small towns. If you come to a lot of these small council meetings and county commissioner meetings, people show up, and they want to share their points of view, and they want to listen, and they want to convey, their passion and their respect for this place and their connection to the beauty of this place, and they want to protect it. And then at the same time, we also need to accommodate newcomers and make room for all the people who are coming in. So there's inherent challenges there that we can solve on the local level here in mountain towns that should, and in my mind, will be a model for the rest of the country.
Mic drop. But these ski pole microphones come 1 in a million, so I ain't dropping it.
You're not going to drop that, right?
No. Man, it's also a good reminder, too, that the struggles, the challenges that we're facing are valid.
Yes.
And that it goes beyond ourselves, beyond just our communities. I think, too, there's a little bit of a parallel to the microcosm of media that you're on the forefront of, because you are a co-founder of the Colorado Sun.
Mm-hmm.
You are, on the front, you're on the sharp end of independent media. Do you feel like there's a parallel to the communities that you serve in many ways, to the way that, you've found your own way in the modern media landscape?
In that we are unproven and that we're still finding our way, grappling blindly in the darkness, hoping. When we founded the Colorado Sun, we had a couple of premises. One, we were going to be responsive to our readers and write journalism and be journalistic focused. And two, we were going to be supported by subscribers. And that was all built on this premise that people were coming around to the idea that news isn't free, and it costs at the very least $8 a month. So that's what we ask for our subscribers. And we also simultaneously did not want to have a paywall. So everything you get at the Colorado Sun is free. Like, you don't have to pay for anything. So the hope is that readers, when they're there, they see the value and they say, you know what, I'm going to contribute. And in a mountain town, you can't just hide in your apartment and let all the other people do all the stuff. When K-Butt's doing their pledge drive, it's a little easier to ignore in a big city. But when you are in a small town, you're like, well, I actually need to pony up. Time to dig deep. Here we go. So, I think that's interesting to draw those connections. And, we all need to play a role, right? And as a newspaper reporter, I need readers to read my articles. I need them to go over to the Colorado Sun and like what we do so much that they toss us a few bucks every month. And as a resident in a small town in a mountain valley, I need to volunteer. I need to donate. I need to do these things. I need to play a role. Like, it's not somebody else's job, And so, that's interesting. I've never really actually thought of those parallels. It's fun to think about, but, it's all about the interconnectedness, and we are all really tied together, and it's never more evident than in a small town. You can lose that connection in a big city, right? Like, it's just easy to plug earphones in and spend all your days on your computer or whatever. But here in a small town, especially getting out skiing all the time and going to all the basketball games. I don't even have kids in the high school basketball game, but we got to go, we got to go to the soccer games, but it's kind of fun. And it's this idea of community and togetherness and interconnected, reliance on each other that defines the West. And that's something that we're trying to do at the Colorado Sun. Like, we need people to read us, and we need them to acknowledge that, those guys are working hard out there. We should give them a couple bucks.
Well, I love the basketball example. Yeah, exactly. That's part of small town USA.
It really is.
It makes it smaller, and maybe there's a lesson for society at large there. The biggest parallel that I'd heard, through that conversation is that the future belongs to those who show up.
Yeah.
Whether that's media, whether that's communities, economies, and, the future challenges that we don't know we're going to face. So back to the Colorado Sun. On your bio on there, in your topics of expertise, your last topic of expertise is interesting things. What falls under interesting things, Jason?
Well, just about anything. And I have struggled to identify that clearly, and it's obviously very difficult to define. But sometimes you just run across a person, a policy, a town, a business, and you're like, well, that is just fascinating. And sometimes it's not good fascinating, sometimes it's bad fascinating, but it's still interesting, and it's the sort of thing that makes you want to read more about, right? keeps you scrolling, maybe.
Oh, cheers to that, but not the scrolling.
Yeah, not the scrolling. Scroll down my article.
Well, I tell you what, brother, let's end it on cheers to interesting things.
Cheers to interesting things. Drew, once again, I'm just stand in awe and so much respect for what you do and how you do it. And I will gladly support you in all your endeavors. Keep doing what you're doing, please. Please.
Mutual, right back at you. I'll always support you. And I've been a fan of your work and of your writing. You've been writing about skiing and about all these communities for 30 years. Well, I'm 31 years old. I've been a fan the whole time.
Yeah,
because my parents were reading your bylines before I was.
That's
Thanks,
awesome.
Jason.
Yeah, thank you, Drew. Love you, brother.
Love you too, man.
Yeah.
Thanks to Jason for joining me for a chairlift chat here in Crested Butte. Man, that was really cool, and I learned a lot from him by getting to reverse the roles. But my greatest takeaway, or really my greatest reflection from that conversation, is that the most interesting people are those who are most interested. And Jason's curiosity and passion as a reporter and for the communities that he writes about definitely shines through and makes him as a human very interesting. You can check out Jason's writing and subscribe to the Colorado Sun at coloradosun.com. You can follow me and the show on Instagram at Drew Peterski, as well as subscribe to the show's newsletter via Substack. Thanks to this episode's sponsor, you can score any discounts that any of the podcast sponsors are offering you as a listener, wherever links live. Of course, all of that is linked in the show notes. That's it for this ride. Thanks for listening to the Drew Petersen podcast. Until next run, keep your tips up. Ski and enjoy, my friends.